It's that time of year again. Everyone knows that the holidays can become overwhelming quickly, so the sooner that you get things done, the better. For both shoppers and businesses, the best time to score great deals during the holidays is Black Friday and Cyber Monday weekend. And that's why you need Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S., from household names like Allbirds and Cowboy e-bikes to entrepreneurs who will be participating in their very first Black Friday or Cyber Monday this year. Shopify has everything you need to succeed from start to finish. First, Shopify's marketing tools help push your brand to the forefront of the chaos, no matter what platform your customers are on. Then, Shopify helps draw customers in with the ease of a convenient checkout with Shop Pay, Shopify's expedited checkout that saves customers information and reduces hassle. The best part? Shop Pay has been proven to boost conversions, meaning you see less abandoned carts and more profits. You can also stress less knowing that Shopify's award-winning customer support team is on standby 24/7 to help with any issues that arise, allowing you to get back to business as fast as possible. This Black Friday, join thousands of new entrepreneurs hearing for the first time with Shopify. Sign up for your free trial today at shopify.com/income. That's shopify.com/income. Go to shopify.com/income and make this Black Friday one to remember.
Rinse takes your laundry and hand delivers it to your door, expertly cleaned and folded. So you could take the time once spent folding and sorting and waiting to finally pursue a whole new version of you. Like Tea Time You. Or this Tea Time You. Or even this Tea Time You.
Said you hear about Dave?
Or even Tea Time You.
So update on Dave.
It's up to you. We'll take the laundry. Rinse. It's time to be great.
Who Killed? I'm your host, Bill Huffman, and this is a Slow Burn Media and Evergreen podcast production. On this week's show, we are going to take a look back at a case from 1978. But before we get started, I want to talk about what I participated in on Wednesday, October 27th, and that was the Walk for Amy. And this was in honor of 10-year-old Amy Mahalovic, who was abducted from the Bay Village Shopping Plaza in Bay Village, Ohio on October 27th, 1989. I was a 10-year-old and was living in the city that borders Bay, and it was something that was extremely tragic and definitely hit close to home because, of course, these are small suburbs and everybody's parents were extremely worried that they were going to be the next abducted child. And again, this case is still unsolved, and what makes her case unique is that she was actually lured to the plaza, and so this was a premeditated act. This was not some abduction of opportunity. This was something that was planned, and again, unfortunately, she was found dead about 100 days after she went missing. So the Walk for Amy was in honor of Amy Mahalovic and her family and the community, and we all hope one day that we'll be able to find the answers to the case that has haunted Northeast Ohio for a number of years. But there's another case that has also haunted Northeast Ohio for a number of years, and that is the missing persons case of Judy Martins. And she was from Avon Lake, but was going to Kent State University at the time of her disappearance. In order to make heads and tails of this case, I have a special guest on this week's episode, and again, that is Nick from the True Crime Garage podcast. They've actually recently done an episode on this case, so Nick knows a little bit about it. And again, it's always a pleasure to have Nick on the show. Hey, Nick, great to have you back on the show. How are you doing, man?
Wonderful, Bill. Thanks for having me on. I'm doing a little working from home today, so to be able to sit here and chat with you and be on the Slow Burn Media flagship show, Who Killed? Well, it's a dream come true, my friend.
Well, it's always a dream come true when you are on Who Killed. So the listeners will be thrilled, and of course, we are here to talk about true crime. And of course, you're the co-host of True Crime Garage, the best true crime podcast out there. And you are, you are what? Almost 500 episodes in.
530.
Holy cow.
Will come out. Number 530 will come out this week. And we also do a show called Off the Record, which we are over like 130 of those as well. That's our Stitcher Premium show that people can sign up for. You can figure that out by going to truecrimegarage.com. We got a link on there, and you actually get your first month for free if you want to sign up for Off the Record. So I always recommend go sign up for free, listen to it for 30 days. You could probably binge the hell out of it and get as many episodes in as you want. And if you want, cancel. Who cares, right? Try it out. Take the old Pepsi challenge and see if you like Off the Record.
Take Nick's advice. He always has positive things to say. And, you know, being a mentor in this industry, he's been very helpful along the way. And I'm going to talk about a certain case today that I think Nick knows a little bit about. And that is the case of one Judy Martins. And she was 22 years old on May 24th, 1978. And she was a junior at Kent State University and was a major in women's studies. Now, she was last seen walking from her friend's dorm, which was Dunbar Hall. And she lived only 300 yards away in Engelman Hall. And this was around 2 a.m. Now, Martins was never seen again. So that's an interesting question right off the bat. Nick, what's your thought about Judy Martins walking 300 yards between dorms in the middle of the night and pretty much disappearing from the face of the earth?
Well, yeah, there's a very short distance between Dunbar Hall and Engelman Hall, and there's a little discrepancy there through some of the different reports that I've seen. Some have it as many as 300 yards, some as little as 100 yards, which is even scarier. From my understanding, the campus, the Kent State University campus, has changed dramatically since when did this case take place? 1978. So yes. Yeah, obviously it's grown by leaps and bounds since then. And back in 78, look, the issue with this case has been a couple of things. There are reasons, right? When we look at these unsolved cases, there are always reasons why they are unsolved. Not that we are handing out any blame here, but in this particular case, the 24th was a day before a break. Okay, so most of the kids, 20, 21, 22-year-old kids, they're leaving campus on the 24th or on the 25th. So she goes missing, and it's going to take a little bit of time to notice that she's even missing because Judy, she lived by herself. So when you live by yourself and you don't have any class that you're supposed to attend that morning or that day, it takes a little bit of time for people to notice that, hey, where is she? So by the time she's reported missing, a lot of the kids had left campus for one reason or another. Again, they're on break. And this is going to kind of hinder the investigation, if you really want to call it that. It looks to me more like it's campus police kind of checking on a student. And how often are they doing that, right? I mean, 5, 6, maybe a dozen times a week that they're checking on a student that didn't come home. And actually, I had found some statements from the police chief, the local police chief, who was talking about the Martins case years after the fact and saying, look, all the time that I was there, we were getting a ton of missing persons reports that would come in. And almost every single time, it was just as simple as kid decided to go home, to mom and dad's place, leave the campus for whatever reason and didn't tell anybody, or girl stayed at boyfriend's house or boyfriend stayed at girl's house or dorm or crashed somewhere and turned up the next day. So this was something that was really difficult for them because she goes missing, and this is really the only person in the course of years and years and years of this police chief working there that she goes missing, and then they never see her again. They never find her, locate her. In any of the cases they had ever had leading up to that and beyond that, they had always found the person, and many times within just a few hours. So we get a difficult case here because, one, there's delay in knowing that she's missing to report it. So before anybody's even looking for her, there's delay. And then two, once we go around and start asking questions, hey, who saw her? Where was she last? What was she wearing? Those typical questions. Where may she be? By the time you're going around and you have the local PD asking those questions, well, a lot of the people were already gone from the campus. So that's going to really kind of screw up your investigation as well. She was supposed to go on some kind of trip.
Yeah. Yeah, she was supposed to go to New York with two of her friends.
Yeah, and one kind of thing that's a little confusing here in this case as well is that there's really kind of two different stories of the knowing that she's missing. Okay, so one version has it that she was to go home to her mom and dad's house in Avon Lake and pick up a vehicle, that this would be a new vehicle for her that I believe her parents purchased for her. That was the story from the family. Now, the story from the friends and PD was that she was to go on this trip, and this would be with a couple of her girlfriends, go out to New York for kind of like a long weekend, and doesn't show when they're supposed to leave for that trip. So they notice something's wrong. I don't want to confuse anyone, because I want to be clear here. There's very likelihood that both stories could be accurate, that she was going to pick up a vehicle at some point on that long weekend and also go on that trip as well. So, but one thing I did do, I didn't speak with any of the family in this case. Sadly, going off of memory here, Bill, I believe both of her parents are probably deceased by this point. I know her father is. And she does have a sister, which I believe might even be more in my neck of the woods. But I did just kind of voice it on True Crime Garage that, look, one story's coming from the family, one story's coming from PD. If maybe what we need to do here in the Martins case is fill in some of the blanks. And if this is information that is incorrect or wrong, or could be added to what the police currently know, then I'm hoping that that her sister and the investigating agency are in communication with one another. And I want to be clear about something here too that's very interesting in this case. She disappeared in 1978. This is very much an active investigation. I can say that 110%, which is strange for a missing persons case this old.
The question that I have about Memorial Day weekend, and I wonder if this was just something that was in the 70s, if they were on quarters or semesters, because if they were on semesters, there would be a lot less students on campus because school would have already been let out at that point. For the spring. And if she was staying for the summer, then they would have been, that would have been why she was staying there. And that, summer classes are always less full and campus is not as busy. But I am not, do you know anything about that? Do you know if this was, were they on quarters or semesters? Do you know?
No, I don't know. But from my understanding, when school would be out for the summertime, in the past years, she had always gone back home and stayed with mom and dad in Avon Lake.
Okay. Yeah, and Avon Lake, for the listeners, is only, I've lived in Avon Lake before. About 5 years of my life I spent there. And, it's
about an hour drive? you would say, from Kent State to
Yeah.
Avon Lake?
Yes, it's about an hour drive, and it's coincidentally bumps right up to Bay Village, which is obviously a place that's near and dear. And but yeah, she grew up in Avon Lake, and the whole thing about them not reporting her missing, I mean, that really is where I think the whole investigation kind of hits a speed bump right off the bat. I mean, when you're not finding somebody or going after, like, if you don't even realize that somebody is considered missing until a few days have already gone by. I mean, what do they say? The first 48, the first 48 hours are the most important, and those 48 hours were not even being, investigated. I would say that her killer had a pretty good getaway time frame, and again, that's just so weird that she would be. I'm so confused on the fact that she would disappear in such a short walk from her dorm, from the dorms. I mean, it's just so weird, and I just think that Judy herself, I mean, I'd mentioned before she was a major in women's studies, but she was also an art major. And one of the things that I saw that she was wearing when she disappeared was a red wig that they were just kind of goofing around with. And, it just kind of brings you the innocence to understand what is going on here. I mean, this is just a 22-year-old girl. She's an RA. I mean, clearly a responsible person. I mean, if you're an RA at college, you are generally not the party girl. That's just the way that I've always seen it. When I was in school, the RA was always the responsible one. That's the person you go to for help in any situation. So she was clearly responsible. Now, she also, when she went missing, and they did finally go into her her dorm room, all of her belongings were still there. Like, none of them, she had no money missing. She didn't have any of her makeup was still there. I mean, it didn't look like she had taken off, and nobody thought that she would be, a runaway or anything like that. I mean, do you think there's any chance that she could have just decided to pick up and leave? I mean, you've talked about the Brian Schaefer case in Columbus, and that's still that's an interesting case too, and he's never been seen again as well. I mean, is there any chance in your mind that she could have just decided to pick up and leave?
Well, I don't want to squash the rest of the story for you, but 0. I would put that number at 0 for Judy Martins. And from what I've been told by, this is secondhand information, but maybe even third-hand information if we're being spot on here. But Judy was, in my mind, the perfect college student. Okay, you're right about the what you said about her being responsible. She absolutely was responsible. But what I mean by my vision of the perfect college student would be Judy. Like, she could be the life of the party. Mm-hmm. She could be the most entertaining, outgoing person when she didn't have to be responsible. When it came to her responsibilities and her duties and her schoolwork and her classes and working toward her degree, everybody says she was right on. There was no one better. Like, she was committed and she was responsible. But when it came to being outgoing and being the life of the party, she could do that. She could flip that switch. And a lot of people can't. And that's something that she could do, and that's why I think she was such a likable person. She was a person that had many, many friends. She was very popular. And you're right. The confusion here, as I pointed out, and as you're understanding, is the lapse of time is really has really kind of messed up this case. There's also a lot of weird stuff on this case as far as when you look at it from all of these years later, right? When you look at it 40 years later, it takes on a different appearance than what it had in 78, 79, and 80. So when people fire up the old internet machine and get looking at this case, the first thing you're going to see is a photo of Martins, and she's smiling, good looking college kid. But the strange thing is she is kind of wearing a costume that night almost. She's wearing a red wig and she's dressing herself up. And from the people that saw her that night, one thing that I found fascinating about this case was everyone kind of kept using the same word, which was bizarro to me. They kept saying, yeah, she was kind of dressed like a hooker. Or sometimes she would dress like a hooker. Now, what I kind of took from that, Bill, was that I think that was maybe even her words, that this was like a getup that she would put on to go out and party. Now,
like, this is my hooker look.
Right, but the weird
cheek.
thing to me is, exactly, because the weird thing to me is when you see that outfit and when you see how she was dressed that night, it's not Julia Roberts' Pretty Woman standing on the street corner hooker, right? This is like a plaid shirt and some weird jeans and a red wig.
This is more like the Skid Row type of hooker.
Well, no, I wouldn't even say that. Like I don't even understand using that word. Okay, and I want to be clear here. I do think that was her word or her friend's words. These are not mine.
Sure.
To me, it looks to me more like a small town girl from a nice area, and that's about where her mind goes when she thinks of a hooker, like or how one would dress, how a sex worker would dress. So, but that statement kept coming up with any of these people that saw her that night. Now, what I think is bizarre about this case is that when you review it 40 years later, almost all of the missing persons posters, flyers, and online information about her features the photo taken from that night where she's wearing this wig. So she doesn't actually even look the way that she actually looked. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How weird that is. Like you're going to put out a picture of how one looks over and over again to try to get some information to, has anybody seen this person? Well, the one that goes around today is primarily a picture of her wearing a wig and smiling and wearing a bunch of makeup. And she's a beautiful young woman, but doesn't look naturally, does not look the way she looked that night when she went missing. And the other thing that's tricky here too, is you say May 24th, but let's be clear. The whole evening starts on May 23rd. She goes out to dinner with some friends, and then she's going to go party and hang out with some of her friends at this, which one of the dorms was it that she was hanging out at? Was it Dunbar?
I think she was, she was at Dunbar, and she was going back to Engelman, I think.
So Dunbar Hall was an all-male dorm, and her dorm, that Engelman, was an all-female dorm. And so she was over kind of hanging out with some male friends that she had. These are people that she's known for quite some time. And from my understanding, the way that the timeline plays out and the events of that night, she's kind of hopping from dorm to dorm and going around and kind of talking to these different guys that she knows. And in some cases, there might be one guy there or two guys there. But most of the information online will say that she went missing on May 24th, and that's all fine and well and good and everything. But the reality of it is we don't know exactly what hour she went missing by. So to say that at 2 a.m. she was walking from dorm A to dorm B and somebody grabbed her or she vanished in that short walk in the middle of the night is a bit of a, it's a good story to tell, but it's probably not factual. Mm-hmm. Something happened through the course of her night with people that she knew. And that is what has ultimately led to her disappearance. Not this walk from dorm to dorm. And so something happened late on the 23rd, early on the 24th, and then she's not reported missing until 2 days later on May 26th at 4:35 p.m. And she's reported missing by one of her friends. Again, she was supposed to go on that trip. Her friend, God bless her, was smart enough to notify Martin's parents as well. And God bless them, they were smart enough that they reported her missing in Avon Lake as well. So this is something that I would recommend anybody out there doing. God forbid any of us find ourselves in this type of predicament. But if you have a loved one that comes up missing and they are in another location, but they are from another location, report them missing in any location that they will accept the report. Just file those reports, because what happened in this case is Kent State didn't know what the hell they were doing.
Yes.
They didn't know how to investigate this. And I don't want to throw too much blame and fault on them. They're campus PD basically, right? They're there to break up beer parties and catch people smoking joints. That's primarily what they are doing out there. The reason why this case has stayed alive for all of these years, and the reason why you and I are sitting here talking about it today, is Avon Lake continued to pursue this case for quite some time and did a good amount of work on the Judy Martins case. And so my hat goes off to her friend and her parents and family for going the extra step, reporting her missing in multiple jurisdictions and keeping the case alive themselves. And her friends are still, we're talking 40 years later, Bill, they're still devastated. That's what kind of person she was. They're still devastated by the loss of their friend all of these decades later. And every one of them had such wonderful things to say about this young woman.
It's really sad to see how basically the family they've never had any answers. The parents have passed away. The interesting thing that I've seen in the research, and I can see where the confusion comes in about what her plans were for the weekend, because you do see reports of, she was going to go home that weekend, according to her siblings, but according to her friends, they were going to New York. So there are different theories on that particular what she was actually going to be doing that weekend. So I'm a little interested in getting some clarity on that, but it is definitely important for a family like Judy's to do exactly what you just said, and that is report her missing in multiple jurisdictions, because then you get kind of all hands on deck. And not that see, the thing about 1978, which is also, it's just that era, man. Like, I hate to say it, but like, people did kind of just sort of disappear every once in a while and then come back, but she just wasn't that type of person. That's where this case hinges on. I think police, the Kent State Police, you see some reports where, the family met with the president, a week after the disappearance, and, they left the meeting unimpressed, thinking, they were just doing a kind of like a PR job trying to cover, their tracks. And, clearly there was something that happened at Kent State that they were still trying to recover from. But again, it is a drop of the ball by authorities when they just make assumptions off the bat. Again, like, okay, she's missing, but again, how much did the Kent State Police take that seriously? I think, like you said, the Avon Lake Police took it a lot more seriously, because they're not a college town. They're a suburb of Cleveland, and you know what? They've got time and cops that aren't there to break up beer parties, and they're not campus police, man. I mean, it's just, they're real police. Not to say that campus police aren't real police, which I kind of just did, but I didn't mean to. It's just more of like
I think it depends on the location, and it depends on the department.
True.
And probably the time that we're talking about here too. And
True.
I think a big key of this is 1978, as you said, the time frame that we're talking about. And yeah, Avon Lake certainly took this a little more seriously. And I say that word because I don't know a better substitute. I just don't think that Kent State knew what it was that they were looking at. I don't think that they understood how to even conduct this type of investigation because of the lay of the land. A college is a natural place for people to disappear, and not for nefarious reasons. They disappear because they ain't liking school so much and they decide to go home, or they jump ship at some point and decide to go off. And, young adults are impulsive, and we've all been there and we've all done that. And I can understand the campus police going, this probably really isn't anything here. And, even if it is, we really don't know what to do with it. So, like, one thing in particular, when you referenced her dorm room, and look, her parents would be terrified to know and be told early on in this case that, yeah, we went into her dorm and it didn't look like anything was missing. And she had eyeglasses and things, purse and things that, that her family says she would have taken with her had she chose to go somewhere. And those items were still left behind in her dorm room. One thing that I find fascinating about this case, though, too, while we're talking about items and possessions, is from my understanding, Bill, she's wearing a particular getup that night. This is the weird case where you can actually see. You can see what the person was wearing on the last night that anyone is saying that they saw her alive and well. Most of the time, that's not the case. Most of the time, you're getting a picture of somebody with the description of what they were wearing or what their belongings were at the time that they were believed to last have been seen. So here we get the images on her. We get that wig, we get the getup. I think she even had some kind of costume type dress, or not dress, but purse with her that night. And nowhere in the Kent State investigation or the Avon Lake investigation have they said that they found any of these items as well. And when I say that this case is an active investigation, I want to assure you it very much is, which makes me feel good, because oftentimes 40 years into a case, they're not active at all. This one very much is active, but we need to be pointing out to the listeners here so that there's no confusion about it. We're not looking for Judy Martins at this time, unfortunately. We're looking for her remains. And this case is really at a standstill until her body or remains are recovered.
Now, I did see that her brother and her sister both submitted their DNA to the national database, in case there is a missing or unidentified body that is recovered. So at least there is definitely, and again, that just happened. I mean, I think they did that in the past few years, but still, I mean, that's like, clearly they're still involved, and clearly there are people still interested in seeing resolution to this case. Back to the campus police, you also have to wonder how many people were, because it was a holiday weekend, did they have more people on staff, or did they have less people on staff because of the holiday? And if it was less people, then, how many people do you have to investigate a possible missing persons? But again, it's college, and it is not even that. It's not even an insult to say they may have been like, well, she'll turn up, I can see, because there's no blood, there's no sign of a struggle, there's no evidence that a crime had been committed other than the circumstantial fact that her belongings were still there, the fact that she wore contact lenses and her eyeglasses were left behind, and the fact that she, didn't show up where she was supposed to be. But those are all things that don't point to necessarily a crime, especially if that's not what you're thinking about as a campus police officer in 1978. Serial killings and stuff like that, I mean, I know that was in the era of Ted Bundy and all that, but were they thinking like that? I mean, it doesn't sound like it. I mean, at least I'm from my perspective of the research, it doesn't look like they took it as seriously as they could have. But I'm also not going to knock them for that because, like you said, college is a great place for people just to kind of tune in and drop out, you know? It's just, but it's just, it leads you to wonder about that ex-boyfriend because we haven't talked about that yet. And we have Judy, who was in a long-term relationship of, from what I've seen, 5 years, which would have overlapped from high school, I'm assuming. And apparently he passed a polygraph test with the Avon Lake Police. So there you go, and you can see that the Avon Lake Police are the ones conducting the polygraph tests. You know, again, it's the Avon Lake. I think the fact that the family is from there, the parents are there. I think that they had a little bit more of a drive to find the answers for the Martins family because it really is. It does seem like they were the more involved police department.
Yeah, 100%. And my guess here is, look, they lived in Avon Lake, and Judy grew up there, and so there's a chance they either personally knew an officer or a detective, or just know each other from growing up or living in the same tight-knit community. And part of that, though, too, Bill, is so Jim Young is or was Martin's boyfriend.
Okay.
And so he was still living in or near Avon Lake. You know, she grew up there. They were boyfriend, girlfriend from high school. Now, we should be clear here because when you say, hey, they had a 5-year relationship and she's a popular girl at Kent State, and then they break up and she goes missing, wow, that looks like, oh, this guy came into town and did something terrible. It's only an hour's drive. That's always a possibility. That's something that you're going to look at. But when we looked into that angle a little closer, one thing that we found was the dynamics of the relationship itself. It's easy to say it was a 5-year relationship. The truth of it was a very much on again, off again relationship for 5 years. As anyone that's had a high school love, if you want to call that, and college love, can imagine how those things work. From my understanding is she actually attended 2 colleges. So Kent State was her second college. And the 2 of them, and I can't recall what the first one was.
No,
maybe
she was like
OU.
me. She left OU.
Okay, she left OU. Jim Young, from my understanding, attended OU with her for some of that time. So
she was there for 2 years.
Yep, that's why the relationship carries over from high school to college. Now, Jim Young goes back to Avon Lake, and she then decides to start going to Kent State. They were on again, off again, and from everything I could find, and this is what her friends were saying too, because, she's relaying this information to her friends, that it was kind of one of those things that when she goes home for the summer, her and Jim hang out a lot during the summertime. Mm-hmm. And then when she goes back to school, they hang out maybe once or twice a month, but not so much. And Jim's an interesting cat to me, and I kind of see why they... I don't know if cleared is the right word to use with Jim Young, but he was definitely a suspect early on. As you can see, they gave him a polygraph, and they interviewed him several times. But I found some the transcript from one of the interviews, and I guess the only legal trouble he had at the time. So part of the reason for their breakup was he liked to drink. He was a bit of a party guy. Yeah, she liked to have a good time, but she was a little more driven. She was working on school. She was working on building her life. And the only legal trouble I could find for him was he fired a gun in his the story, there's a few different stories here, but the way it sounds to me, Bill, is that he fired a gun inside his apartment and either shot out a window or shot a wall on accident. He could have been drunk, I don't know. But one part that was a little funny in the transcripts of the police interview with Jim Young was they asked him, they're like, "Hey, do you have any guns?" And he goes, "Yeah, you guys know that I have guns. I was arrested for shooting out the window in my apartment." Like, he's very forthcoming. And they go, "Okay,
cleaning the gun, it probably went off."
Well, listen to this. He goes, they go, "Okay, well, where are your guns?" He goes, "Well, you know I have guns because you guys confiscated them when you charged me with firing this gun in the city limits." So he was still waiting to go to court for whatever those charges were. Very misdemeanor type stuff. But his guns that he openly tells the police, "Yeah, I have guns and firearms, but they're in your possession because I'm waiting to go to court for these charges." So, and you referenced serial killer, and I'm imagining that you, in your research there, you came across probably the name of a serial killer that has been tied to
Posey.
This case. Yeah.
Yes, and that it would be one William John Posey Jr., and he had lived actually just about 10 minutes from the Kent State University campus. And one of the interesting things about Mr. Posey is that he pleaded guilty to the abduction and murder of an Illinois woman. And I just said Illinois. Illinois woman. He was convicted of the kidnapping of Iris Brown in 1981. Now, Brown, who disappeared in 1976, was never located. Now, that sounds familiar. This is from the Charlie Project. In 2008, Posey admitted he had murdered her. He never faced charges in the Martins' case, but is considered a person of interest due to his criminal history and his proximity to where she disappeared. And I cannot disagree with that one bit. What are the chances of Judy living, I don't know, within a 10-minute drive of a serial killer? I mean, I guess it's possible that he wasn't involved, but what are your thoughts on this interesting character?
So in that profile of him, how many people did it say that he killed? Was it 2 or 1?
I think he got convicted of one.
Because I think at a later
he's done
date
multiple.
he confessed
Yeah, he's done
to another murder.
Yeah. I think he's. I don't think he was ever charged with it, but I think he admitted to another murder.
Okay, and so the reason why he was never really charged with the other one, I think he was actually charged and convicted of the one victim's kidnapping, but never of her murder. And then later he confessed to, he's like, "Yeah, I killed her." So William Posey's an interesting cat. As you said, he lives in or near Avon Lake at the time that Martins goes missing.
Near Kent.
Yeah, near Kent, I'm sorry. And so is there a chance that he's, the random killer that you're looking for, and it's a random attack, and he just kind of snatches her up on the way home, on her walk home? She's walking home by herself in the middle of the night, attractive young college student. Yeah, there's a possibility. I would put the possibility at very somewhere in the margins of slim to none. And I state that simply because the Martins case is an active investigation. The current agency that is working this case is not Kent State so much, not Avon Lake so much. It's the U.S. Marshals, okay? And this is a pretty top-notch organization right here. You don't mess with the Marshals. Now, the Marshals became involved in the Martins case because of William Posey. So if you look, his victims were in different states, okay? And that's part of the reason why the U.S. Marshals had to get involved. Now, the U.S. Marshals get involved, and they're starting to hear these rumors of, oh, well, he was in the area at the time that Martins went missing, and, oh, we believe he has another victim that he kidnapped, and her body's never been located. But the reason why he was never officially convicted of the murder, only the kidnapping of the one victim, is because he confessed all these years later to this murder. He was terminally ill. This was essentially a deathbed confession. This dude was not a great guy. Obviously, he murdered 2 women. But when we say kidnapped, if you look at those 2 cases, they're quite different than the Martins case. Both of those victims had the unfortunate commonality of knowing William Posey. These weren't random victims that he snatched up somewhere. These were people that he knew and that he killed. He's one of the rare types of serial killers that kill people that they know. And so he killed these 2 different young women. You know, so Martins kind of fits the victimology profile for this Posey guy, but he's making a deathbed confession. What is a deathbed confession? A deathbed confession is you're trying to get right with God before you have to die. Because if you didn't receive proper punishment here, you might be getting it at the next place that you go to. And Posey wanted to try to get right. And so my guess here, Bill, is if Posey was our guy, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about an unsolved Martins case. He would have confessed to it. And he basically said, he was questioned about it. And he said, I did these other ones. I didn't do this one. And he has no reason to not confess to this one. And in fact, in the one girl's case where they never found the remains, he physically, actively tried to help them locate the remains. They just, due to the time that has gone by, were unable to do so. And so Posey's an interesting part of the story, but he's just that, an interesting part of this story. Another interesting part to this story is the claims that she was alive and well.
Oh, yeah.
And decided to start living on the streets and become a street worker, sex worker herself in the greater Cleveland area.
Yeah, I saw that theory. I'm like, what? That seems like a far-fetched. The more I looked into that was a very interesting lead, because wasn't it her brother that went up and actually tracked down this particular person?
On everybody's mind on the local level. We're talking early 80s. The newspapers were still a big deal back then. And so this was a story that most people read. And one night, a working girl gets booked in the Cleveland jail, comes in. She looks somewhat like Miss Martins. And so somebody phones in at a tip and says, hey, I think we arrested the girl that's been missing for all these years. And so they get up there and they start talking to this girl, and she does not deny being Judy Martins. So that's going to start a whole weird part to this story. But the family ends up meeting this young woman and says, they felt bad for her. And it's weird because it sounds to me, what adds to the public's confusion on this case is that the early reports state that Judy's mother said that, yes, this is Judy. And her brother and father are like, nope, it's not. And sometimes, look, love is blind, my friend. We all know that. And when you are hurting, when you are heartbroken, you will see things and do things and wish for things so badly to be true, and almost try to will them into existence. But it's really a tragic story all around, because you talked about her family and the brother and sister giving their DNA, providing DNA to law enforcement. And this is because you're absolutely right, Bill. They got no answers in this case for 40 years. No answers. All they ended up getting was some additional questions and then additional heartbreak. And this young woman that was picked up in Cleveland was unfortunately drug addicted, and just another sad part to the story. But it didn't really have anything to do with Judy Martins. And that's just like layer and layer of heartbreak for her family to get these near misses, right, on what could be. And there's been several Jane Does throughout the years that they thought may be Martins, and it has not been yet, has not turned out to be that way yet. So it's a really tragic, heartbreaking case, and it's one of those ones to me that I feel really bad for the family, because not only was their daughter and sister missing, but then you get these additional gut punches every now and then, every few years of a Jane Doe or this young woman that was picked up in Cleveland. It's a could be, but it's not. Just another blow to the heart there.
When you don't have any answers in this particular case, I mean, it's just awful. I mean, her father passed away from cancer at a very young age. Her mom passed away at a young age. When you go through these types of tragedies as a family, it definitely takes more out of you than just, I mean, it's a tragedy for the whole family and everyone involved, family and friends. And, I feel like Judy's case would have been so much, if it happened today, we wouldn't, I say this all the time, because it's revisionist history. But if we had the technology today that we have, if we had the technology that we have today back then there's no way that this case would be unsolved. I mean, there would have been cameras recording, somebody would have noticed something. I also think that in this world that we live in, as far as the true crime world, which has become much more popular in the last, few decades, it wasn't really a big thing in 1978 to be aware of what to look out for. And a lot of listeners and a lot of the people that I've talked to, why they listen to true crime, a lot of them come back to me and they say, well, it's nice to know to kind of what to look out for. And in Judy's case, there probably wasn't as much information on stranger danger and that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm just totally speculating on that aspect of it, but it just seems like a more innocent time period, 1978, than 2021, which doesn't sound necessarily right, but I feel like there's much more awareness today than there would have been on May 23rd, 1978.
Well, and again, I just want to kind of point out that week for everybody, because it adds to the conflict of solving this case and the conflict of finding her and putting together a good suspect list, right? Because they had a decent suspect list, but you're reaching a little bit for people that, when you review the suspect list that they were working with early on, it's pretty much the former boyfriend, and that's it. And so the 23rd is a Tuesday. They party, they have a good time. As the story goes, she goes missing at 2 a.m., 2:30 a.m., walking home in the dark by herself, short walk. That's Wednesday, early Wednesday. She's not reported missing until 4:35 p.m. on Friday. They're breaking for a holiday weekend. Do you think anybody's actively searching for a missing college kid who they get these reports almost daily or a couple a week? And that's no stretch there. I'll pull up an exact quote from the Kent State Police Chief here in a second. If I'll try to find it while we're talking through this. But think about that, how that screwed up this investigation, even on the local level, where we're not putting a high probability of Kent State solving this thing anyway. But then let's add in the factor of she's missing for 2 days, then finally reported missing. And by the time she's reported missing, it's practically 5 p.m. on a Friday on a holiday weekend. Kids are going home. The big issue also becomes, okay, well, has anybody seen her? Oh, well, who does she hang out with? Well, she hangs out with Bill, and she hangs out with Nick, and she hangs out with so-and-so. Well, Bill has gone home for the holiday weekend. Nick left yesterday, and so is getting ready to leave now. And so this is 1978. And as you pointed out, had technology been what it is today, it would be a different story. When Bill left school on that Friday and when Nick left school on that Thursday, they almost became impossible to get a hold of until they came back. And now, memories fade even just after a couple days. And, so that is one big part of the problem for this case. Now, Kent State Police Chief Robert Malone said this is the only case we had at Kent State of a missing person who could not be accounted for. I know it's the only one since 1973 when I came on board. With 17,000 students, we get a lot of missing persons reports here, but there always seems to be an explanation. So this is from that article that came out about 4 or 5 years after Judy went missing. So he was not the Kent State Police Chief at the time that she went missing, but he started working there in 1973. So this is approximately 82 or 83 by the time he's doing this interview. And he's saying in a 9-10 year time period, she's the only one that we've never had a reasonable explanation for, that we couldn't come up with finding her relatively quickly. Somewhere when we covered it, and my notes are pretty extensive in this case, so I'm having a hard time sifting through them here, Bill, and I apologize. But somewhere in our coverage of it on True Crime Garage, I did have the exact quote of where he said approximately how many people they get reported missing each week at that time. But the thing here is, this has all the makings for a good crime novel, a good mystery novel, right? Beautiful young woman goes missing in the middle of the night, walking home by herself. Years later, the strange sighting of possibly she's relocated and this down on her luck person comes into the picture, and it's a possible match, and it could be her, but it's not, ends up not being her, and the mystery of the boyfriend, and then the serial killer comes into the fold years after the fact where, he was in the area and he's killed similar victims. So it has all the makings for a great mystery novel. The thing for me, though, Bill, is it's not at the heart and core of this story, it's not that big of a mystery to me. And I think what adds to the confusion here is simply that story of she was last seen walking from dorm to dorm. And you are right. If we had technology back in 78 that we have today, this case would be solved. And why would it be solved? 2 reasons. One, I don't believe you would have any camera footage of her walking from dorm A to dorm B. I don't think she left dorm A of her own free will that night. So when the story says she was last seen walking home from Dunbar Hall to Engelman Hall, that sounds good. It sounds good in the papers. It adds to the mystery. Who says they saw her walking home? No one. I've reviewed the police file. There is not a single person that says they witnessed her walking home. So I go, well, maybe she didn't even walk home. Maybe something happened to her before she could walk home that night. And therein lies the answer to your question and to solving this mystery. And I think the other thing that technology would show you, had they had it, somebody had to get her body out of that dorm at a Dunbar Hall. And there's a chance that it may have taken more than one person. And so while I do not believe that you would have seen video footage of her walking from dorm to dorm, I think you would have seen video footage of somebody moving something suspicious either that night or the next morning on the 24th. That's the other thing. If something terrible happened to this woman on the night of the 23rd or very early in the early hours of the 24th, Nobody's looking for her until the 26th. Somebody had time to dispose of her body if something terrible happened to her. And the thing is, too, back then, from my understanding, from what I've been told by people that have a good understanding of what the campus looked like in 78, is you go about 25 yards, 30 yards in one direction from Dunbar Hall, and you're in the woods. So somebody may not have had to go very far to dispose of her. And I'll tell you what, the answer to what happened to Judy Martins is in the timeline itself. The last individuals that saw her that night, that were admittedly hanging out with her that night, there's 4 individuals. And I believe in my heart that one, if not 2 of them know. Likely 2 of them is my guess. Because, again, either I think maybe one person did something bad or 2 people did something bad. Or if we want to go back to just one, again, they may have had help getting rid of something later. So the four people in that timeline are the ones that you really want to look at.
Yeah, and especially with that beating a holiday weekend, nobody would be suspicious if they saw you carrying a big suitcase.
Carrying a big suitcase, and this sounds really sad, but I've heard from more than one person that on that campus in 78, it would not send off any alarm bells if you saw someone carrying a drunk person over their shoulder.
Honestly, I mean, I went to OU. She was at OU. I mean, these are like top party schools in the nation. You're absolutely right. It is something that would be weird now, but back then,
more than one individual told me that, and to me, it seems a little, like I don't know how I would.
Sounds a little date rapey to me, but yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I have a little doubt to that, but I've been told that by more than one individual. So if they believe it to be true, then it must be true on some level.
I mean, okay, they could have seen one person doing that at one point or another, and I mean, again, it's college. People get way too drunk and have no ability to walk sometimes, and that's just part of being a college student. My thought, and I think I fall in the same category as you, is that she most likely never left that dorm because there's no specific sighting of her leaving a door. She exited out of the east door of Dunbar Hall. Usually you see that type of description when somebody's been seen leaving somewhere. So I would say that's a red flag in the research that I've uncovered. And that, yeah, those last 4 people that saw her, what kind of nefarious thing could have happened? Anybody's guess, and it's not fair for us to speculate, but something clearly bad happened to Judy, and the people that were with her most likely do know where she is, or what they had done with her or what had happened to her on that night. Mm-hmm. It just makes no sense that she would disappear in 150 or 200 yards. It just, again, like you said, nobody saw her.
Nobody saw her leaving. Nobody saw her make that walk or even walk out that dorm door. No witness at any time ever says that they even see her, like making their way out of the dorm building itself.
Mm-hmm. That's where I see a big problem.
The way that the story goes is that she vanished somewhere between Dunbar Hall and Engelman Hall. The genesis of that story is the last 2 individuals that saw her, that she was hanging out with. They say, well, yes, she left here at such and such time and said that she was walking home. That's the genesis of that story. And what's been told for 40 years is that she disappeared walking alone in the dark in the middle of the night. Well, show me in a police file this thick, not one witness that says that says, oh, yep, I witnessed her she looked like she was leaving the dorm. I didn't see her step out, but she looked like she was leaving Dunbar Hall. And no one says I witnessed her walking from Dunbar to Engelman or anywhere else. So until you can find that person, I believe that the answer lies inside Dunbar Hall and in the last individuals that saw her that night, between the hours of 11 p.m. and let's go ahead and go 2:30 a.m. because that's the time that these persons say in the police file. But yeah, it's the answers to this one. It's interesting because there's all these little interesting nuggets and pieces to the story that make it larger than what it probably should be. And it's a very simple case to me when I review this one.
So basically we have Judy. She goes out partying, assuming she's partying, hanging out with friends, doing whatever. Don't know the exact specifics, but what was the timeline from that night?
So it's more of like a celebration for Miss Martins that night. She is going to go out to dinner with friends, and then after dinner with her friends, she goes back to her dorm room and her friends' dorms, which these are female friends. So right now she's still in Engelman Hall, right? And at some point she decides to make the walk to Dunbar Hall. So at approximately 11 p.m., she leaves her friend Robin's room in Engelman Hall dorm. She tells her that she is going to see Charles Nevels. Now, Charles Nevels lives in Dunbar Hall, and this is a well-known, well-liked guy. Robin knows him. Her other friends know him. He seems like he might have been a bit of a catch back then. I don't know if there was any kind of relationship going on between him or any of these other girls. But anyway, she states that at 11 p.m. approximately that she's leaving her Engelman Hall to go to Dunbar Hall with the expectation of seeing Charles Nevels. Okay. So she arrives at 233 Dunbar Hall, stays there with Charles Nevels and John Beckany. This is in John's room. And these are all according to statements that these witnesses gave to police at one time or another. Judy there removes the wig, sunglasses, and trench coat that she was wearing. Again, she's out celebrating, having a good time. Right around 11 p.m. approximately, this is per Kevin Greer, another witness for the night, says that Judy stops by to see if Bernie Caffrey is home or at his dorm, but he is not. So she talks to Bernie's roommate, Leo Robe, for a minute and then goes to Charles Nevels' room again. Leo Robe says that Judy was dressed, quote, like a hooker.
Let's hear from this week's sponsor, Best Fiends. It's great getting back to normal as we head into fall. I know I'll be working in the yard and hitting my favorite fall festivities. One thing I know for sure is I'll be diving into Best Fiends on my phone. Since true crime research calls for a mental break, Best Fiends has become my go-to. Clearly, I love to solve puzzles, and Best Fiends offers me a new challenge every day. Best Fiends is way more fun than any other matching puzzle game out there. It's also one of those games that makes time fly, and it's totally free to download. One of the coolest parts about Best Fiends is there's something new going on all the time. Whether it's a new challenge, more levels, a fun monthly event, or new characters. I am cruising through these levels, and that's pretty much a sign that anyone can play. I've discovered that moving through these puzzle levels is also a mindful experience. Plus, collecting all those different characters is another reason that I turn to Best Fiends for a challenge. If you're tired of the same old puzzle games, this game is for you. If you don't have a favorite character yet, give Temper a try. He's small but mighty. Trust me, you don't want to miss out on this game. So join me and millions of people who are already playing this fun puzzle game. Download Best Fiends for free on the Apple App Store or Google Play today. That's friends without the R, Best Fiends. Let's hear from this week's sponsor, BetterHelp.com. We may have moved past 2020, but 2021 is still looking fairly grim. But today I'm happy to tell you about BetterHelp.com. Because if there's anything holding you back or interfering with your happiness, BetterHelp Online Counseling is there for you. You can connect with a professional counselor in a safe and private online environment. And it's really convenient because in this current state that we live in, it just has to be. So now you can get help on your own time at your own pace. All you have to do is schedule a secure video or phone session, or you can chat and text with your therapist. BetterHelp really is there for you. They have over 3,000 U.S. licensed therapists across all 50 states. And if, for whatever reason, you aren't happy with your counselor, you can request a new one at any time. So if you're suffering from depression or anxiety, stress, anger, relationship issues, heck, you're not getting a good night's sleep, or have LGBT matters, or just low self-esteem, they literally have a licensed professional counselor for you. And of course, everything you share is confidential. The thing I like the most is it's actually affordable. And Who Killed listeners get 10% off their first month with the discount code WHO. So why not get started today? Go to betterhelp.com/WHO. All you have to do is fill out a questionnaire to help them assess your needs, and then you get matched with a counselor you'll love. Again, for 10% off, go to betterhelp.com/WHO.
At approximately midnight, John Beckany knocks on Charles Neville's door. He and a friend are going to the local 7-Eleven, going to walk over to the 7-Eleven. And John Beckany returns the wig, sunglasses, and trench coat to Judy at that time. So she left these items in his dorm room because she went over to see Charles. They're going to the 7-Eleven, probably just drop by and say, hey, do you want to go with us? No, don't want to go. Okay, here's your items back that you left in my dorm. John Beckany's statement to police is that Judy is in good mental and physical condition at this time. Now, May 24th, 1978, at approximately 2:30 a.m., Charles Neville says that this is the time that Judy leaves his room and that her intentions are to walk home. So we've just referenced 4 or 5 individuals that saw her in the hours between 11 p.m. and maybe up to 2:30 a.m. Again, I don't love that 2:30 a.m. time because we're getting that from witnesses that I think should be suspects. So I think the key time frame is 11 p.m. and onward. Something happened after 11 p.m. Something happened after she went to Dunbar Hall. And I am not very confident that she walked out of Dunbar Hall.
That is a timeline that is definitely disconcerting if you're anybody related to Judy or her friends, because it definitely sounds like whatever happened in that last from midnight to 2:30 in the morning or whatever that is.
Right. And between some of those individuals that I've mentioned there that I named in that timeline of that night, there's been some very minor discrepancies in their stories throughout the years. Again, memories fade. We're human beings. We make mistakes. We forget things. That's all well and good, but there are also some inconsistencies in these stories, and we're talking about not being questioned 40 years later, months later. I think that your answer lies somewhere within the 4 or 5 individuals that we just named.
Yeah, and that is one of the things that we run into when you have somebody who, or multiple people who are complicit in a crime. I guess if 2 people know, they're kind of each supporting each other on not sharing what they know, but maybe when one passes away, maybe they'll give in. But it doesn't seem like this should be that hard of a case to solve, in my opinion. It seems like a case that just was screwed from the start. And that's basically, you had so many days to clean up a crime scene. If there was a crime scene, if there was blood, if there was this, that, or the other. And again, there was no sign of a struggle at her dorm, so the police didn't have any reason to suspect foul play. Yes, there's a missing persons, but again, it's 1978 and people do go missing. And that is by their own choice in most cases. So at the end of the day, I'm sitting here looking at a case that, yes, it seems very cut and dry that something happened with those 4 or 5 individuals, but why there hasn't been any action, I think stems from the fact that they don't have any physical evidence to prove that a crime was committed. And of course, they don't have a body. So, it's what do they have? I mean, it all sounds really good. Like you mentioned the timeline. It sounds great for the papers. And this all does sound good too, but it's just like they just don't, it doesn't sound like they have enough to bring any charges unless somebody just finally decides to confess.
Well, and like I pointed out, it only takes 1 or 2 individuals in this timeline to be lying for the fact that she didn't leave, that she didn't make that walk. This timeline, if we are to believe every individual and they're telling the 100% truth in this timeline, then she should have left. And in my mind, she should have made it back to her dorm. So there's at least one individual in this group that is lying. Who is it? I don't know. I just don't. I can't say because I don't know. And if it's 2 people that are lying, that is where it gets even more complex for your investigation. And in the early goings of this case, they were not investigating a homicide. They were investigating a missing persons case. They were really thinking that they were going to find her alive and well somewhere, that this was just a misunderstanding. And the only misunderstanding I see here is with believing all of these guys' stories.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that if they took these guys' stories at face value, then they didn't have any reason to continue looking into them at that time. The case seems more dramatic than what it should be. I mean, this wouldn't be something, I think, today that we would be talking about 40 years from now. I just don't think that would be the case. And another thing about technology is all the dorms now have scanner cards. So you would have had a time in or a time out, for at least for, like, let's say these individuals did have something to do with her disappearance and they did dispose of her body. They would have at least, if it happened today, let's say they did avoid cameras and all that other stuff, there would still be that one thing, like, I don't know, cell phone locations or, just geo-tracking information. But again, when they come back to the dorm, can you explain why you were gone from 2:30 to 4:30 a.m.? It's right. Just like, I know we always talk about technology and we always are waiting for technology to catch up. But in this case, unfortunately, it was a disadvantage, and I don't think it should be this difficult, but they need to find the body. And if it's 40 years, man, I mean, what are your thoughts about where this body could possibly be?
Well, I was just going to say, I'm a little surprised with the development of that immediate area and just the development in general over time that she's not been discovered by accident. But that's the key here that we need to point out and remind everyone is just that. One, I really feel, Bill, and I can't say this with 100% certainty, but the vibes I was getting from the U.S. Marshals was that this case is really teetering on finding those remains. If they could find her remains, that we might have a case here. We might have arrests that follow shortly afterwards. So, one thing that's key that we need to point out here is that it is an active investigation, even though it's been 40 years. The U.S. Marshals are highly invested in this investigation and finding who is responsible or the parties that are responsible, and any information should be. We don't need to send it to Kent State. We don't need to send it to Avon Lake. We need to go right to the source so good information does not get lost. If anybody has any information in the Judy Martins case, please, please, please reach out to the U.S. Marshals, and the best number to get a hold of them would be 1-866-4-WANTED, which is 1-866-492-6833. Bill, if you would allow me just a few more minutes of your time here, I have another missing persons case that I'm hoping to bring some more awareness to, and this is in your area, so I know your listeners will be could be helpful with any information in this one. So Paige Coffey has been missing since Wednesday, May 1st, 2019. And there's some conflicting stories on the last time that she was seen. So let's just kind of put that as a roundabout. But that's generally believed to be the last time that anybody saw Paige Coffey alive and well. She's been missing from Bratenall.
It's Bratenall.
Right?
It's Bratenall,
Ohio.
It's the fanciest, it's got the biggest houses in the city.
Well, she was 27 years old at the time of her disappearance. She's 5'8" tall, 230 pounds, female, African-American, brown hair, brown eyes. I've met some of her family, absolutely wonderful people. They are heartbroken. They're trying to do anything they can to figure out where Paige Coffey may be or what may have happened to her. The Bratenall Police Department and the Cleveland Family Center for Missing Children and Adults need your help locating this missing female. Again, 27 years old. Paige Coffey was last seen May 1st, 2019. Family members fear Paige may be in danger due to a change in mental status. Paige has ties to South Euclid, Macedonia, Oakwood, and Copley. Copley or Copley areas. Anyone who has seen Paige or anyone who may have any information as to her whereabouts, please contact the Bratenall Police Department at 216-681-1234 or the Cleveland Family Center at 216-255-8164.
Well, I think that is a worthy couple minutes. I think that any unsolved case, especially when you're involved with the parents and you've met them and on a personal level, I think it becomes much more, you want to see resolution. I know I felt that way after I met Mark Mahalovic. And again, this will come out obviously after the 32-year anniversary of 10-year-old Amy Mahalovic's abduction and disappearance and murder. And again, that case remains unsolved too. So we do these shows for a reason, and some of it is for the hope that people will one day come forward with the right information, and these communities can put these cases behind them and let these families start to rebuild their lives. Because again, it doesn't just impact one family, it impacts the whole, it's like a spider web. It starts in the middle and just expands out, and the sooner they get the answers, the better.
And sorry, with the Paige Coffey investigation, missing persons case that we just talked about, I know that the FBI has recently become involved in this investigation. And so really, when I'm asking everybody for help, it's not just like, do you think that you've seen Paige recently, or do you think that you know her whereabouts of late? they're also really trying to fill out the timeline around her disappearance. So if anybody can think back and recall something from that May 1st date, just before, just after, maybe something they witnessed that they thought was strange in that general area, they're looking to fill out the timeline because, look, we just talked about Judy Martins' case. Look how important the timeline of her disappearance is in that case. And so when you have somebody that you're looking for, someone that's gone lost, gone missing, it's really key that they have good information and have a good timeline to work off of. Because if you don't have that, you don't have any real leads at all. And again, Judy Martin's case, the story has always been she disappeared in the middle of the night, walking the streets in the dark alone. That's no timeline at all. And when you really start to look at the timeline and the events of the 23rd, you start to get a much clearer picture of what probably happened in the Martins case.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a good message to put out there. And it's important for people just to be conscientious of their surroundings. And I hate to remind people to be safe and stuff like that, but you do have to be aware, and if you see something that doesn't seem right, jot down a license plate if you can, or, it's like I try to tell people, if you see something that doesn't feel right, do your best to maybe take a note. I mean, I'm not trying to put people in danger. I don't want people to pull out their cameras and start taking video, but if you're able to do so in a safe environment. We've seen it with, the George Floyd case. Obviously, without that cell phone video, we wouldn't be in the situation we were in. And again, it's important for innocent bystanders to basically stand up and be like, "Hey, no, don't do that. Don't, if you see somebody being taken, dragged away, or thrown over the shoulder, like we talked about earlier in the episode, in this day and age, that's not acceptable. So if you see that, step in. At least find somebody of authority that can step in. I'm just saying, you can be diligent and not just be some innocent bystander who just stands by and doesn't do anything. I mean, it's just, you can be you can be a better person by providing information to the police than just ignoring it. And I know that sounds stupid, but so many people just turn the other way. And it's a shame, because a lot of these crimes could probably be solved if these people stepped forward.
And when we talk about being a better person or better people, there are few better people than Bill Huffman, who had me on his wonderful show today. I want to thank you again, Bill, for allowing me to come on, and thank your audience for putting up with me for another stay. And I hope they'll have me back. And go Browns, right? Browns are 4-3. I guess 5-2 is the leader in the whole AFC right now. So there's still hope, still lots of hope.
Yeah, I mean, Baker's injury is a little bit concerning, but I at least was comfortable seeing Case perform dutifully. I mean, he just did his job, and that was really all he needs. And we'll have Chubb back on, so hopefully it all works out. But yes, having you on the show is always a pleasure. I know you're a huge Browns fan, and we always have to throw in a little Browns thing at the end there. So with their hopes still alive for a great season, I mean, they still have 10 games left. So, because remember, this is a 17-game season. And let's hope for the best. And Nick, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. And thank you so much for taking a significant amount of your morning to spend time with me and to share your knowledge on the Judy Martins case, because I believe it is something that you are very knowledgeable about. And I think the timeline that you laid out really does a great job of kind of putting it where it should be and who may be responsible. So thank you.
And thanks again, Bill. Thank you. And thank your wonderful, beautiful audience for allowing me in here again. Hey, if you haven't already, check out True Crime Garage podcast. We're a weekly podcast, and we're almost as good as Who Killed. So check us out. We're available everywhere. Thanks again, Bill. Take care, buddy.
You bet. Thanks, Nick. Thank you so much to Nick of the True Crime Garage podcast for joining me once again. Remember to check out their premium show, Off the Record, on the Stitcher app, as well as their entire backlog wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Thank you again to this week's sponsor, Best Fiends. Download it today on the Apple App Store or Google Play. Also, thank you to BetterHelp.com. You can save 10% with my promo code WHO. Most importantly, though, thank you all for listening. There wouldn't be a show without you guys. As you know, you can find new episodes of Who Killed every Friday wherever you get your favorite podcasts. As always, if you enjoyed this podcast and my other shows, you can help support this show via PayPal with my username at WilliamHuffman3 or via the Venmo app with my username at Bill-Huffman-3. Every contribution, big or small, does help keep these slow burn podcasts running. You can also help support the show by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. Those 5 stars go a long way in help keeping the important cases that I cover in the spotlight. So if you'd like to stay up to date on the cases that I have covered, as well as the new shows I have in the pipeline, you can always follow me on Twitter at BillHuffman3. So thank you guys so much again for listening. Until next time, be healthy and stay safe.
If a president cares to make DOJ an arm of his own political operation, he can do that. And there's not a heck of a lot we can do.
Why isn't the U.S. justice system able to hold the powerful to account?
So many guardrails, protections, norms, traditions have been discarded.
Why didn't Trump get indicted over the Jan 6 insurrection?
People wanted Mueller to say, I do find that he committed an indictable offense. Mueller did not say that.
Why aren't you listening to Disorder yet to find out? I'm Jason Pack. I'm a senior analyst at the NATO Foundation and the host of the Disorder podcast. Each week, alongside my rotating group of co-hosts and world-leading experts, we analyze why the world is so disordered, why disordering leaders make it worse, and then we ask, what can we, the individual, do to fix it?
The people matter as much or more than the rules.
This week, we're joined by Eli Honig, CNN's senior legal analyst. He and I look at exactly why the U.S. legal system isn't working and why Britain and other legal systems are.
People always say the Justice Department is independent or must be or should be independent. I agree should be, but it's not.
Search Disorder wherever you get your podcasts.
Is the pressure of your wedding day being perfect from sunrise to sunset weighing on your mind? Planning a wedding can be stressful, but it shouldn't be, and that's why we're here to help. On the Bridechilla podcast, we celebrate love and help you plan your wedding day. We're all about keeping it real and having fun every step of the way. So whether you're just starting to plan or counting down the days, we're here to help you stay cool, calm, and collected. We have expert tips and amazing guests. Let's get this party started and embrace your inner Bridechilla. Listen to Bridechilla wherever you get your podcasts, or visit us at thebridechilla.com.